Welcome back to Healing Mindset. I am Nazish, and tonight's conversation invites us into something we're all craving: real human connection. I am joined by David Deighton, artist, conversational experimenter, and the visionary behind Triptych Dialogue, a project transforming how we engage with strangers in a world overflowing with noise but starving for genuine connection. Through spontaneous street interviewers, immersive art installations, and thousands of altruism books left anonymously for public to discover. David has spent years studying what truly happens when curiosity replaces caution. His work is a reminder that meaningful connection isn't a miracle, it is a practice. David,
Mm.
welcome to Healing Mindset. I am so thrilled to have you here.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me on. Hello to all your listeners.
So, David, your work centers around reconnected humanity in an age of digital chambers. What was the moment when you realized this mission was worth devoting your life to?
It's a process. It's not just a singular moment. Um, my personal experience, I was raised in France and grew up there and came to America and saw that there were greater division in our society in what concerns political opinions. People were they were polarized. They were no longer able to talk on the taboo subject of politics. And I wasn't as much interested in the subject as much as the facts and opinions of politics. But why is there a taboo where we're unable, or we wish not to speak about a certain thing, right? And and to find that reconnection with the other, with people of different political opinions. How is that done? So as an artist, I explored media like street arts or abstract art, using different artist names, and found that to have this actual connection on the subject of a taboo subject, to connect directly with not just the public, but just each individual, I had to go out in person and have my real persona, not some artist name, to be there face to face and to engage with people in venues that were not the one of the gallery, the museum, or where it's expected, to go where it's unexpected and to be there, learn to listen with all my senses. That was new, right? Explore all the senses, to be an active listener for the other, not to be triggered by what the other was saying, especially on political issues. Like, do I disagree or agree with what these things? But to be there for the person, for that singular moment, and then to find a commonality with that person, and um, and to use that as a bridge, bring down the tension, to also show the example that we can have these conversations without the outrage that one finds in the United States, as well as in India as well. I know there's a lot of polarization as well. So um, that's where I'm at. It's a journey.
It is a journey, and it sounds such a beautiful journey, but which involves a lot of hard work that you have put into this.
It's a personal, yeah, it's a personal journey from learning not to be triggered um, by what other people say, and to be present, to listen, and to find out where the best places to follow this practice can be done. Right? It's
Yeah.
more difficult. Yeah, how do you do this on the streets of New York? It's not as easy as in a national park in the middle of nature when people are out visiting a calm space. So I choose the calm space because that's a place where it's more conducive to having these exchanges.
And
Uh, Maybe someday I could do the streets of New York. It's like too busy.
Definitely. So, when you took your very first step into this conversational experiment, what surprised you most about people's willingness or hesitation to engage?
Yeah, so um, I was surprised that people would want to engage with me in the first place. I mean, I do have uh, an excuse to do it. I go to a national park and I have a space that's dedicated for me. The parks have been very graceful in letting me have this space. In the US, they call them First Amendment areas. They're free speech areas that are open to all. And I've brought art to these places. So people don't expect to see that there. They expect to see something very different. Um, I'm in that space and I'm asking people to talk and be recorded to express their views on politics because that's my taboo subject, right? I can choose a different taboo subject, but that's the one I chose. And people want to express that they want to talk, especially to a stranger, somebody that's what are they going to do to them, right? They don't know I'm going to listen. They don't know what's going to happen, but they do. And And that was a big surprise. Um, Overwhelmingly, most people I speak to are, if they're not in a hurry to do something else, they're willing to participate. Um, I tell them it's anonymous as well. That they don't like recording their voices, maybe, but they don't have to tell me their names. Um, and and that exchange, what I've noticed is this. What surprised me is that when people answer my questions, and they're always the same 3 questions I ask them in my artwork, um, they're non-confrontational political questions. That's my canvas, if you like. But they paint it with all their words and facts and opinions of what they want to share. But there's an emotion or a reaction, a word that's mostly an emotion that I find in what they say. And it's usually one of hope, a reconciliation of bringing people together, regardless of how extreme they might be in their political views on either end of the political spectrum. They want to connect. There's a there's a need to connect in person, to be heard, not online, not through the digital device where these outrages are actually brewing, made by the algorithm. If you want, this is just human interactions, and there's a desire for that, it surprised me in so many ways that openness, and it's brought, interestingly, rather than rage, I've had more people. Well, it's about finding that connection with the other, and how people are willing to speak to a stranger when we least expect it, and to express maybe a taboo subject if we're willing to listen under certain circumstances, such as being in the right place and being present for the other. And that's transformative for me because over the years at the beginning, I was unable to listen. Um, all I could be is triggered by views and opinions that were contrary to mine and wanting to interject and give my opinion and prove them wrong, show them that they were in the wrong direction or whatever it is. And there's no point really in that. People have just something they need to say. Okay, fair enough. I'll be that person, um, and show by example that maybe they can do the same for others, even if they don't take it in during that exchange. Maybe in the future they do. And my experience over the years has shown me that people have done that because they'll get back to me saying, that was transformational for me. Well, they wouldn't use that word. So it made a difference. And I had a conversation with my uncle that we had I was very close to him when I was young, but afterwards we no longer spoke because I couldn't stand listening to what craziness he had to say. And, and the thing that they used was not worrying too much about what opinion they had, is finding that connection, and the connection was usually a word, something some people can relate to rather than maybe some deep felt spiritual energy. And that word would be an emotion. They were angry. Hey, I was angry too. You know, I disagree with everything you said, but I want to let you know that I feel that as well on that subject. And and so by expressing that, there's really no argument to be made. You feel a certain way, the other person feels that way too around that word, and that serves as a an instrument, as a bridge that we can simply have by recognizing that rather than trying to analyze the other person. They usually give us something that we could take with us, a key or that stone that can be used in a foundation to a bridge. And so I'll take that all the way through my artwork and in the exchange and invite other people to do the same, to engage the stranger.
That is
And
actually, yeah, that is actually very beautiful. And I feel like the way you put it, that there are difference in opinions and difference in views that could trigger us. It is something that a lot of us go through in our personal and daily life. Even sometimes I feel like that there are some views that if I am sitting in a gathering and there's something and I want to correct you, why are you saying this? I just want to make you see that I am right, you are wrong. And it happens to the best of us. And the way you're putting it, it is absolutely something that I can relate with. So I am pretty sure that many of my listeners are also going to relate with it.
and they will also relate of the process that it takes to get to these things. Uh, it's to be in an to to engage, to travel into a space we are uncomfortable with, to be in that area and to explore it like a traveler, to see new things, it has new tastes, has new smells, because that's the thing I'll focus on is what are all the senses that you feel in that exchange? Because when I'm speaking to someone, it's, you know, it's visual and auditory. I can hear them. Okay. But also, hey, what happens to smell and touch, the mind, right? Taste. So here we are talking about politics, taboo subject. They answer the questions. And at the end, I'll ask them, listen, give me one word that brings all of your ideas together. And you can do that with that uncle that you disagree with. You know, they said everything they said, but just give me one word. You only get one word. Well, usually they'll give them up with one or two. And that word is often contradicts everything they said before because they have maybe a vision of hope. That's a very common word that people use. And I'll take that word and I'll use it with somebody else. And I'll say, okay, let's say they said democracy. Okay, maybe they have a hope in democracy. And I'll say, and I'll ask another stranger in a different circumstance, and we'll be talking about taste. And I'll say, what does democracy taste like? It's very abstract. What does democracy smell like? Huh? What does it feel like? Right? And and people just stop and say, that's so strange, but they'll go for it. They'll think about it. And then all of a sudden, oh, democracy tastes like a rotten lemon, or it's a very tasty pie, or
Different people,
like
different ways to put it.
different thing. Yeah, they have this. And so from that space, all of a sudden we moved on beyond the taboo of the subject to see it from all of a sudden a different angle of a place that we usually forget to use, different senses. And I'm here in the US, I don't often talk about the sense of the mind, but it's always there present. And it's also in an environment where in nature, all these things calm and we're calming down. We calm the mind down to be able to think of what democracy tastes like to get to there. There's a big moment of silence. We're in a different space.
Yeah.
And to stay in that space, even for a little moment, is part of that journey, part of that travel into the other. And there's no actually other. In the end, we all agree that it's all we're all together, everything's connected, right? And because we've just found a commonality, we find something that we agree on, even though we thought we were extremes. And now we're in a different space talking about things that are usually not associated. Taste and democracy.
That is actually very that is actually very funny and very beautifully put. And it is a very amazing example, I must say. So tell me something. Your tri-pitch dialogue invites strangers into conversation through an artistic lens. What is it about art that makes it such an effective bridge for people who might not otherwise speak?
Well, you know, we're I believe we're all artists as long
Mm,
when we act with intention. Yeah.
true.
So our intentionality means we're all artists. So I don't need to share that with the first person, stranger I meet. That's a bit philosophical. Um, but the to be to engage the person in an activity that is different from where they usually are. So an art installation, an interview discussing around the taste of a word brings us into a space that is beyond where we were, to look deeper within ourselves, right? For just a bit, to exercise that practice, maybe to rekindle the practice of connection. And they'll be thinking about it because there's a story, that interaction, there's a story. I met this man over in a national park and we did the craziest thing. They'll share that with another, and it'll be the catalyst, the instrument for greater moments of calm and connection within. And that's that I'm going with that. It's a flow. It's a flow, and people call it an artistic flow or whatever, but it can be done with performance and painting, and can be done in song. There's so many different ways, right? Stay in that flow, and that's where the connection are, because we're all in that flow. Uh, we just don't see it because we're often um, veiled underneath preoccupations, or this digital device that we use constantly, that's not meant to keep us in any flow except in the flow of the algorithm and those that own it. So they can make a buck and make a dollar off of us. That's the way it feels to me.
No, it is very true. And I love that art has a way of opening people long before they even realize it is happening.
You said
And it
that
is such a
already.
beautiful and you put it so beautifully that we are all artists. So
Mm.
something that we can all work on and go ahead and open up.
Mhm. Yeah, and all the avenues are good. I mean, the point is just to do it, and to get in an uncomfortable space, to engage with other people
Yeah.
and see what their echo chamber worldview looks like. Jump in, swim around a little bit, see what it is in their world through conversation, experience, and being present. And it's a fabulous journey. We all do it. Try a different way.
Yeah.
See what it tastes like. It smells.
That is absolutely amazing. So you have asked hundreds of stranger political questions to show that disagreement does have to create hostility.
Mhm.
What pattern have you seen emerge from these interactions?
Uh, well, the patterns that surprised, and well, there's the surprise that people don't get upset. That's always blown me away. But I am listening. So what's there to be upset about? And um, I'm there, not arguing, um, unless they ask me what my opinion is. So the pattern is one of acceptance, and also surrender. Surrender to the stranger when the occasion is appropriate, in a space where people feel safe. And it's for us to find where that safe place is for the other in order to have that conversation. And if you can do it in the streets of a busy city on a street corner, good for you. I haven't really had that occasion, um, to do that connection, but I find it easier in a space where people are they're more in harmony with their surroundings, or at least trying to. as I try
And
to, as a constant practice.
it is a constant practice, I must agree. And this is incredibly encouraging as well. I mean, it shows how much capacity we have for nuance we were actually listening. And it is incredibly encouraging, I must say. So, and when political tension does arise, what helps people stay grounded instead of reactive, triggering, and just I am right, you are wrong.
That's always, I think, a personal practice. I don't know how other, there's so many different ways of doing this. I I usually have uh, an element of the natural world that I hold with me, a rock, plants with a nice smell, or something like this. Um, the visualization of a bird that I saw earlier that day, or a song. Um, it's not that I no longer listen to the other, but I remind myself of the impermanence of us all and how long that rock can last in time, and that this conversation in this moment, and compared to the rock I hold, is so infinitely small. And this, it'll be gone. It'll pass. So I get triggered, and I know that, okay, well, soon that will pass, right? I recognize it, and I will use that to grow. Like, why was I triggered? What was the point of my suffering, if you like? Where did that come from? And that'll be part of my own practice. But it allows me to be more present in the moment, um, because by repetition and practice, these things become easier. And as I was saying years ago, that wasn't the case. But after speaking to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, um, it just becomes much easier. And I'm here speaking to you. Before, I couldn't do that. I was not. I was a very solitary recluse of an artist without a smile or a laughter or any laugh. Just much anger within me of a world that seemed very unjust. Mm.
That is actually such an amazing skill that you have to, told us about, and I feel like it needs to be normalized. And like listening to you, I feel like it is something that is not impossible. We can all inculcate in our daily lives and every like that, and it just feels so accessible. Also, regular repetition is required, as you mentioned. Yeah.
Yes, and exposing ourselves to maybe a more
Yeah,
difficult
getting out
situation,
of
a place where out of our bubble. Maybe.
yeah, getting out of a comfort zone is a must. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So, your altruism books encourage people to approach strangers using non confrontational, creative prompts. What do you think people respond so positively to something left anonymously in the world?
Well, it's interesting. I do this without really knowing what happens to these books that I take a book that's being thrown away in the trash, that's being recycled, I reuse it, I put my non-confrontational questions in it, and I put in a page that I glue in there that invites people to speak to strangers and everything we've been speaking about just in there. Somebody I put this book on a park bench in a community center. I hand them to people to take on their travels, take it in an airplane and drop it off in a different city. I don't really know the outcome of those things because they don't get back to me. It's an anonymous act.
Yeah.
Um, it's a selfless act more than anonymous. Now they know who I am, but is a selfless act, and sometimes I do hear back. Over a few years now, I hear somebody says, "Oh, I know you're the guy that makes that book. I've used that book with in my church, in my mosque or whatever," and they've spoken to others using the example in there. That feels good. That's my ego going, yay! But taking different angles, and that's one of the angles I take. And it's very fun to see when somebody picks up the book and takes it with them, or not, or whatever they do with it. Um, it's something we can all do. I also bury messages in ceramic pottery that I make, and I buried it for who knows, maybe 100,000 years or never. Somebody might find it, and there'll be a message in there. So I'll never know what happens to that.
That sounds so beautiful and more than beautiful. It is something so amazing. And it is actually a selfless act, as you mentioned. And I feel like it is also fun for a lot of people who get it at the receiving end of it. I hope I get it someday.
Well,
It
for those that can't get the book, they can always I document everything and put it on YouTube so they can watch me dropping off a book or me
That is
ripping up a
amazing.
book.
And David, I feel like after this conversation, a lot of our listeners will want to know more about your work and discover more about Triptych Dialogue and all. So tell us, where can they find you?
Well, there's only one way currently is on YouTube. They can go to my project name, which is Triptych, and then dialogue, Dialogue. And there it's a wacky, unusual, fun. I don't aim to please when I put anything in there. There's a lot of unusual abstract videos of all sorts, and it's exploring echo chambers, bubbles, disinformation, these art installations. It's kind of a diary, right? A diary of what I do. Um, so do explore that, and you write me comments. If I can, I'll send you even a book. If it's possible, if it's not too far, be glad to send one. But also the methods of how to make these art books yourself and make your own messages. I'm glad to share, and I'm glad to dialogue, of course.
That is amazing. I will make sure to include the link in the show notes so that a lot and lots of people can watch your YouTube video, YouTube videos, your daily vlogs, and your everything because it sounds so amazing to me. I am going to check it out after them.
It's strange. It's strange. I could say this. It's strange. It's different.
Amazing. So, David, thank you for reminding us that connection isn't a lost art. It is living practice available to us every single day. And to everyone listening, let today's conversation invite you to look up from the familiar and engage someone you might have walked past. A simple exchange can shift an atmosphere, soften a divide, or remind you that humanity is still profoundly reachable, one stranger at a time. Until next time, I am Nazish, and this is Healing Mindset.